I'm Dan Brown of YouTube.com/Pogobat, and today I'm going to answer, why do I tube?
Hey everyone, I'm Matt Bailey. Welcome to Why Do YouTube? This is the brand new talk show where we sit down with some of your favorite creators and find out who they are and why they do what they do. Our very first guest for this series is Dan Brown of YouTube.com/Pogobat. Dan invited me into his home and we talked about everything from politics to Cosby, and he even answered that question for me. Why do YouTube? So we are going to jump in with my first question. I always find this question the hardest when I get asked it, but who is Dan Brown?
Well, I am. I'm a video blogger. I got my start with a Rubik's Cube tutorial way back in 2007. That sort of served as a launching pad for the wild and crazy media career. And now I focus on sort of intellectually driven conversational format. I try to incentivize a real back and forth with my audience. I turn the camera around on them with frequency.
What prompted you to upload that first video?
The Rubik's Cube tutorial was just a product of being bored in Nebraska in the summer as a high school student. One of my friends knew that I could solve the Rubik's Cube, was like, hey, you should teach me. And so I was like, I'll make a video, that way I don't have to actually teach you, I can just refer everyone in the future to this video. And lo and behold, it got 1 million views in its first month on YouTube as it existed in 2007. That was, mind-blowing for, 17-year-old me. The reason it gets views in the first place is because people are organically searching for it, right? It comes from a place of genuine curiosity. How do I solve this damn desk toy that I have, sitting around? It's because the views, I think, come from search rather than sharing, in a word.
What was your mindset like when you realized it had taken off? It boggled your mind. How did you capitalize on it?
Well, I didn't capitalize on it at first. I kept getting these emails from YouTube saying, you should enable monetization, and I just didn't care. Like, I was a 17-year-old kid. Like, I didn't have to pay for anything on my own. I had never really had a real job in my life, so like I didn't enable monetization until much later than I probably should have. And when I first checked it after the first week, the way AdSense worked back then, it was just a slight trickle. I had 5 cents in there, so I never checked it. And then months later, I had family in town. They're like, oh yeah, you making money off of that? I was like, I should probably check that. And suddenly it was up to $5,000. I was like, whoa! Wow. As a high school kid, that's a dangerous amount of money for a high schooler. But I wanted to be known as a personality. I wanted to be a video blogger. So over the school year after I uploaded the Rubik's Cube tutorial, I kind of vlogged here and there. There are a lot of early vlogs about kind of the 2008 presidential election specifically. But I really began video blogging in earnest the following summer, a year after the Rubik's Cube tutorial. And that's when I really began building a consistent audience, not just people who wanted to, solve a puzzle. So I was probably doing the sort of intellectual content that I now know how to explain what it is so eloquently and quickly. I was probably doing that before I really recognized, knew how to put it into terms what I was after, just because I was that sort of kid. I was, I was a teacher's pet, all A's in high school, very intellectually driven even before I knew how to, say that. So it's really been in hindsight and after some swings and misses, honestly, on YouTube, that I've been able to look back at what has gone right over the last 8 years, what has gone wrong, and figure out the sort of content that I'm most driven to make.
But how important is that relationship to your fans to you?
Well, to me personally, it's very important, but it's also, hopefully important to them. Hopefully I'm providing something that doesn't exist elsewhere on YouTube. I'm really trying to fill a vacuum. I'm just trying to be real, I'm not trying to make false promises to them. I'm trying to talk to them, I'm trying to represent the dynamic between me and them that actually exists, which is, I'm not your friend, but I am, a discussion leader, right? And I'm willing to put you on the pedestal as much as myself.
One video I was watching, you talked about realizing that you have this relationship with your fans versus just being selfish and using your vlog for what you call teleprompter practice.
Yeah.
So where did that shift come in?
Well, so to talk about this and fully contextualize it, we need to go back to a project I did called Dan 3.0.
Yeah.
Which was hugely ambitious. It was this way that I had concocted in my 19-year-old brain at this point of sort of turning everything I had built on YouTube up until that point into, like, to maximize its potential. In my head, it was a failure, because where I wanted to really deepen this relationship with my audience and use it for, a more political purpose than, financial purpose. I felt that what actually happened was it kind of put distance between us. It cheapened that relationship. Not to knock, the network that I was working with at the time. It was a lack of communication, and that's kind of to be expected when you're a 19-year-old going into negotiations with a big network. Like there are a lot of voices telling you what you should value, and what I learned from that more than anything was what I actually value, and that my content's going to be at its best when I'm pursuing my values. And I've lost complete track of what the question was.
No, I love when that happens. I love the question. The question was, I got to read it back too.
Right, yeah.
Going from teleprompter practice to the relationship with your fans.
To the teleprompter practice point, I was offered an audition at Fuse, the music network. And I flew out to New York, I auditioned, and I ultimately got the gig. So for the last 3.5 years, from the end of 2011 to the end of 2014, my primary focus was not on YouTube. I was hosting on TV. I was doing a live TV show every day, which provided a lot of valuable experience for me, and most importantly, it allowed me the time I needed to take a step away from YouTube, to figure out how YouTube fits into my life as an adult rather than as a kid growing into adulthood.
How has YouTube changed your life?
Well, it's kind of defined who I am. It's an impossible question to answer because I have no idea who I would be without the success of the Rubik's Cube tutorial and everything I've pursued. It's not so much that it changed my life as it defined the most defining years of anyone's life for me. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 years old, when you're really figuring out who you are. I guess without YouTube, I probably would have graduated from college in 4 years rather than the 15-year trajectory I'm on now, taking part-time classes. I'd be a political science student. I'd probably have some internship at some campaign. I'd still be naturally fascinated by media. I wouldn't be surprised if media found some way to latch onto my life without it. But
I guess we've kind of answered the question that it's a big yes. You would say that YouTube is changing the media landscape, but how? How, as you see it with your finger on the pulse the way that it is, how do you believe that it is changing?
Well, first of all, my finger's not as much on the pulse as you might be led to believe. Sometimes as a creator, there's a reason I'm a creator and not a consumer. I don't watch as much YouTube as most people might assume a YouTuber watches, because my head is to the ground. I'm so focused on my own thing. Mm-hmm. But that being said, I just know anecdotally that YouTube is sort of upending kids television specifically. There's a huge generational rift at play, and it's not just young people generally. It's specifically people who are under 18 now consume YouTube exclusively. Nickelodeon, Disney Channel, they've been struggling over the last decade, at least relatively. They're not the behemoths they were probably when we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm going to stop you there. Is there a danger in that? Is there a danger in offering too much to everybody, not just kids especially, but not just kids?
I think that was an eventuality with media regardless. I don't think you can point fingers at YouTube for that. That's just sort of a problem that culturally we have to tackle in the digital age.
Oh yeah.
I think there is tremendous danger, not just talking about YouTube, but talking even about social media, Facebook, who you choose to follow. You create what I saw some TED Talk refer to it as filter bubbles, mm-hmm. right? You see only what you want to see. You follow only creators and accounts that all validate what you want to believe about the world. And I think that's largely why our politics has become so polarized, because people who subscribe to conservative channels and follow conservative accounts have an entirely different conception of what reality is than people who follow progressive ones.
So what's going to happen eventually to that? Is it going to kind of come to a head? Because we gotta come to a consensus, I think. What's going to happen there? Where's that neutral ground going to be?
Well, I think you said it. You said consensus. And so as much as the internet taking a long view, the internet is still a teenager right now, right? In terms of, the infancy of the internet was probably, the dial-up days when we were, disregarding everything the military and DARPA was doing in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. But the internet is kind of in its adolescent phase right now, is what I would say. And so it allows us to live in these filter bubbles today, but it's a slow process. It's a generational process. Also, I think that as the millennial generation comes into its own, we are the largest generation in history. Much bigger than even the baby boomer generation. And so we might not even need to break down filter bubbles to start seeing rapid progressive change. I think it's already beginning. We're seeing the tip of the iceberg just now.
You talk about that in Let Them Eat Cake, and that's one of my favorite episodes, because you're about one notch below yelling in that video. I love that.
At the end, I think it was.
Yeah, I love that video.
If I'm gay in Indiana and I want a wedding cake, I will sue you and I will win. Moreover, I'm fascinated by this guy's repeated usage of the word activity. It's distancing language, right? In his mind, it's not a wedding, it's a gay wedding, which is more of an activity than, say, the most important day in its participants' lives, where they are bound in holy matrimony to each other because they are truly and profoundly in love. The implication here is that gayness isn't a fundamental part of who some people are. No, it's just a thing that some people do. Anyone who is gay or knows anyone who's gay knows that that's not the case. But this sort of doublespeak that says you aren't who you know yourself to be is scary. It's the first step down a slippery slope towards denying people their civil rights.
What happens when we have progressive victory after progressive victory after progressive victory, and these things that are now progressive causes become more normative, and we achieve that change? That two-party system that we have, okay?
Yeah.
What's the other side going to look like?
I think we will still have the traditional Democrat-Republican dynamic. I think that this will simply force Republicans to move to the left. Because whenever you have an institution as entrenched and massive and experienced as, the Democratic brand or Republican brand, it would require suicide on a massive scale for the Republican brand to just fold. And maybe more importantly, as the millennial generation, starts aging, seeing where they fit into, politics more accurately, and subsequently seeing how important it is to go out and freaking vote. We will see progressive victory after progressive victory after progressive victory. It's going to take some time to see it as fully as we ultimately will, because congressional districts are so damn gerrymandered right now. They're shaped so funny because state legislatures are controlled by Republicans. I'm going deep down the political rabbit hole here. But when it comes, at the very least, to presidential elections, which are largely symbolic victory. It's not just symbolic, like he has veto power, obviously. I don't think that we will see another Republican president elected in the United States until some moment of reckoning has happened for the Republican Party. But when it comes to more local control, it might be more of a slog. It requires progressives winning state houses back, not just the presidency.
Shift gears and talk about Cosby.
We can talk about Cosby.
The Cosby Show does not transcend Bill Cosby's follies. The Cosby Show simulates closeness with its audience. It figuratively lets us into the Cosby household. Understanding Bill Cosby as a loving and nurturing father figure, that closeness is comforting. But accepting Bill Cosby as a serial rapist, that closeness is creepy, dangerous even. We have all been misled about our relationship with Bill Cosby, and to a point, we are all his victims. It's hard to laugh at jokes told by a serial rapist. Moreover, it's hard to laugh at jokes told by someone who has played you personally for a fool. Almost all of Cosby's work is tied directly to his person, and as such, almost none of it has any credibility left.
Agree with everything you said to a point, but I don't think that you can diminish, and I feel disgusting saying this because in no way am I excusing anything that he's done, that you can diminish the idea that he was really the first one to bring the image of African Americans up on television.
Yeah.
Playing a doctor himself, his wife, Claire, being a lawyer. How do you reconcile what he did for a minority group of people on television that I think is irrefutable? He was the first, he set the tone with who he actually is, a disgusting human being.
Right.
That work that ended up being good apart from him.
Right.
Unless you say that that's not good, that it somehow happened illegitimately.
Let me frame it this way. When John Edwards ran for president in, 2008, knowing full well that he was having an affair with his wife who had cancer, and if that happened to leak out at the time, had he somehow gotten the nomination, it would have tanked Democrats' chances. Or if he was even on the ticket, if he was VP, or who knows. I think Bill Cosby was playing with fire, and the fact that these allegations didn't come out, or at least didn't latch onto the public consciousness, doesn't change the fact that he was playing a game of Russian roulette with racial progress. And I think that it is appropriate to frame this in the context of race. And I think that maybe plays a role in why the allegations didn't, because he had, not only the entertainment industry was invested in protecting his identity, not only the people who stood to profit off of the Cosby Show continuing to air reruns and sell DVDs and merchandise, but also anyone who was an advocate for black progress in the United States was worried that if these allegations came to light, that it would set back that progress. That is not fair to the victims.
No, it's not.
It's incredibly unfair to the victims. It's the sort of thing that drives people to suicide, right? You're playing with people's lives, very literally. Here we are weighing racial progress against the victims of rape progress, and it's an impossible sort of calculation.
But so I've been really excited to do this. What is your favorite word?
Favorite word? Well, least favorite word. I don't know if I'd say least favorite, but most interesting word. The word that I'm most eager to tell people about is the hardest one syllable to pronounce in the English language. Do you know what it is?
No.
Sixth.
Sixth.
Sixth, like sixth place.
Yes.
It's one syllable where you have to cram in three syllables. Sixth. It's stupid. So I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's at least the most interesting.
So do you have a least favorite word? That's the next one.
Well, there are all sorts of very hateful words that I really. And so recently I've been really turned off by people who will say female and male rather than man or woman, right? I was watching a video by a female. Like, it's distancing language, you know what I mean? And often I wish that we could be comfortable enough in these conversations to just say it was a woman, it was a man, it was a young woman, it was a young man, instead of female or male. It feels like you're a robot speaking about these things, right?
What political or social issue should be focused on more by society?
Political or social issue? Well, I don't think you can place enough emphasis on the distribution of wealth. Because that's what every other social issue or domestic issue stems from, right? Is the egregious disparity in wealth that we have in the United States. Like, even people who understand that there is a disparity in wealth don't understand the depth of that disparity still, and we've been talking about it nonstop for like 3 years. So even though you may feel like you've heard as much as you can handle, that always.
What political or social issues should be focused on less by society? Is there a red herring that we're just obsessed with?
Yes, and it's gay marriage, and it has been for a while. Not to say that it's not important. It's incredibly important, and this is an incredible victory, and of course we should celebrate. But I'm also really glad that this happened now, not just because it's long past time, but also because it's going to force Democrats in the 2016 presidential election to campaign on something more difficult. Because really, this issue is so obvious to any open-minded observer, right? Like, let people be equal, done.
Yeah.
Right? So the fact that now this is basically, like, we've reached the peak of Everest, basically. You know, there's more work to be done in terms of, like, ubiquitous acceptance, right? But being able to move on is, I think, the truest sign of progress on that. To not even have to think about it, right? So, yeah.
What is your favorite curse word?
Yeah, there's something so guttural about at the end of, you know, it's like the F word is a crescendo into a hard consonant. But in terms of, like, framing a curse word in a social context, I like shit more, because people are less offended by it, but it still has a bite to it. In a similar linguistic way, you can still crescendo into the hard at the end, shit. But people don't hear you say that and immediately tune you out, right?
Yeah.
So I probably use shit the most. It's like, shit, yeah. It's fun.
What sound or noise do you love?
Can I go with, like, the little blink noise that my computer makes when, you know, footage is done importing? You know, you have built-in breaks when your footage is rendering. That's when I check the news. That's when I, you know, see what's on the front page of Reddit. Go right back to it and get down to work again. 5 minutes.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Well, I mean, we talk about politics a lot. Yeah. I mean, but I don't necessarily see a hard and fast line between what I'm doing and politics. You know, what I'm doing now is politics. I'm trying to influence change through new media, and I think that any future political attempt of mine should feel pretty seamless. There shouldn't be a clear moment you can point to where I switched from YouTube to politics. You know, but yeah, in a word, politics.
What profession would you not like to do?
I resigned myself at a very young age to never be an astronaut, just because of the hazards of the job. I met Rick Husband, who was the commander of the shuttle that exploded in re-entry in 2002. When I was a little kid, I met him, and so he's dead because he tried to go to space, and so I. Not to make light of that, but I don't want to. You know, if I can just avoid early death, I try to avoid those situations as much as possible. So let's not go to space. I mean, let's all collectively let's go to space. Let's make it safe. You know, let's get to a point where I have no reservations about, you know,
going to space.
Yeah, because that's what everyone does. It's not a big problem. But I don't need to be a pioneer in that field.
But speaking of death, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I have so much I want to talk to you about. That'd be cool. That'd be a real affirmation. Like, I'm so psyched you're here. I want to pick your brain.
I love it.
You know? Yeah.
I love it. Now, what do you want to see YouTube do for the world?
I think a lot of, you know, what I was speaking to earlier about what I want to accomplish through YouTube, right? I want to create a culture where we can communicate on a global scale and talk like human beings to each other about the most serious issues of our time, and really use it as a platform for social justice and change.
It is the question of the show.
Sure.
Why do YouTube?
Because of that. Also, in a more selfish way, it is it's a constant affirmation, right? You know, you build an audience. I mean, I'm answering this honestly, right? I'm not being particularly measured here,
Please.
But. Yeah, when you build an audience around your ideas and your just charisma, like, of course they like you, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, the most fulfilling part of my job is after it's published, you know, the next day, I try not to watch the comments right away because it's not a representative sample. Watch pot never boils, right? But the next morning, when I go to read through the comments and the emails, and, you know, when I learn from what they put there, you know, there's nothing quite as affirming as that in my entire experience of the world.
Wait a minute. Hang on.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Solve it.
Solve it? Oh, well, we're like 3 moves away. Up. Oh, sorry. I think I can shortcut this. Maybe.
Okay.
Never mind. I'm just gonna try to solve it. Green is right there. So we're going to do that like that, and then that like that. And then we're already way closer than we should be. This is going to go this way.
Is that one even a Rubik's Cube?
It's not a Rubik's brand cube. This is a New Island cube, and it's much, much smoother. The action on it is fantastic. It's stickerless also, so you don't have to worry about the stickers peeling, I feel like an idiot for not being able to figure it out initially, the shortcutted way, but...
Hey Dan, thank you so much for inviting me into your home to do this. I hope you enjoyed the interview, sitting down and chatting with me as much as I enjoyed having this conversation with you. It was a lot of fun. Now, to everybody out there watching, I got to tell you something. I don't have a second guest. I want you to tell me who I should interview next, and I will reach out and I will try my hardest. And I have no regular production schedule here because I want to put as much production effort into the next one as I did into this one. But in order for it to work and in order for it to pay off, not necessarily financially, but in order for me to do it and it be worth it, I gotta know you're out there. So click subscribe, click subscribe right here below, clicky click, clickety click. And if you want to see more of me and Dan, I showed him a card trick, that's over here. But most importantly, comment, tell me who my next interview is, and I will try my hardest to get to them, get them to do it, and get to them to film with them. So tell me who you want to see, who's your favorite YouTuber. Until then, thank you so much. Do all the things that YouTubers do. Click subscribe, watch the other video, and I will see you next time. Don't second guess that. That's a good guess.
I'm not second guessing it. I'm trying to remember what the question was again.
I don't care. The questions are jumping off points for exactly this.
Okay.